Okay, looks like we've got everyone in. How are you all doing? If there's anyone who's not on mute, can you just make sure that you are? Just so we don't have any feedback. Okay. All right, well, let's get going. Today is we're still in the throes of the full moon energy. It was full moon. The full moon energies always run over 3 days. So they started on Friday, peaked last night, and kind of start to fade off today. So we're in a particularly intense time. I don't know how all of you are feeling, but I certainly felt on Friday like there was a lot of heaviness that kind of felt like it had descended. Not in a negative way, but it felt like I had someone pushing down on my crown. So it was a little uncomfortable, and I actually found that I had planned a day of doing a whole lot of errands in the morning and getting things done before I did work in the afternoon. And I realized that there was no ways I was going to be able to do that because every obstacle that could possibly get in my way got in my way. So I decided to just go home and spend the rest of the morning trying to be quiet at home. So it is intense. At the moment, we start a new week tomorrow and a new month, which is always interesting to start a Monday on the first. So I checked in and felt into the energies, and there's definitely quite a lot of processing going on that is resulting in some deep clearing and releasing. And it could be that you're feeling a bit like you're having a spontaneous detox. It definitely is feeling that way. I've actually gotten a program that I'm working through to cleanse and clear and release things on a physical level, an emotional level, and a mental level. So I've been focusing on that for most of today, actually, just trying to help myself and support myself through this clearing. Because it feels like the energies really are focused on the outdated and detrimental mental programming and thinking patterns that we've adopted in this lifetime and probably in previous lifetimes too. So it feels like it's this intense energy that is focused on our thinking, on our minds. And these thought patterns and these programmings are the ones that tell us that life is difficult and must be filled with suffering. And as a result of that, they sabotage our desire for fulfillment, our desire for joy, our desire for purpose, and we end up continually believing in these concepts and these ideas that we're not good enough and we're never going to get what we want. So I don't know I have had a few people phoning me in the last few days of last week saying, what's going on? I'm feeling so negative. I'm feeling so heavy. I'm feeling like nothing's shifting, nothing's changing, nothing's happening. But there is a lot of shifting and changing that's happening. We just are impatient and expect the outcome or the manifestation of those things to start happening now. And for all of you that know me well, I am an incredibly impatient person. I decided a long time ago that patience was a virtue that I did not need. And so I expect things to happen now. So I'm incredibly impatient especially when things like this happen, because I expect the clearing to be instant and I expect things to change instantly. And unfortunately, they don't. And as this energy comes in, it is moving through these levels and layers of us. And with that, there are emotions that are coming up. And a lot of these emotions are feelings that keep us trapped in old wounds and negativity. So the toxicity of these woundings and the emotions that come with it are surfacing. So you may find that there's emotional stuff that is surfacing as well. I'm finding it very interesting, and I spoke about this last night on our Q&A session. I'm finding it incredibly interesting that I'm able to, there's stuff happening and there's stuff coming up in my life and within me as well. And I'm really finding it interesting that I'm able to just observe it without reacting and responding like I would normally. I'm able to just feel into it, observe it, see it, not get hooked into it or triggered by it, and allow it to just move on and move by. So that is really the space, and I've been encouraged and told that this is the space that we need to move into. So I've been doing a lot of imagining that I'm standing in a stream and just letting all of this stuff move through and move on, rather than holding on to it. We also have this real human, what best describes it, maybe it's a human need to understand and to work things out and to figure out why we have these thoughts and why we have these feelings. And at the moment, there is no point in thinking, in trying to figure out these thinking patterns, trying to understand them, or trying to work out where they come from. It is time to just let them go. They are so old that they're not even relevant to the person that you have become. They do not fit who you are today. So you can't understand them because you are not the same person that you were when you adopted these thought patterns and these programmings. So just let them go. Don't try and figure them out. Don't try and analyze them. Just allow the flow and let them move on. Let me just turn on my chats because I can see I'm getting a few, and I need to open those. There we go. Lynn said she had a feeling of sadness on Friday, but did as you talked about, observed it, accepted it, and just flowed through me. Well done. Yeah, I must say, I also, there has been, there's a strange, it's a strange sadness. It's not, I can't explain it. It's not a heartbreak. Yeah, it's I've also been feeling that. And Carolyn's also said she can validate the observations. And I think it's certainly the guidance that I've been getting has been showing me that as we allow all of these old patterns and programmings, the old emotions, the old wounding to fall away, we're able to then begin to feel hope and excitement for the future. I don't know about any of you, but I remember as a child being told, don't get too excited about things because they never really work out the way that you expect them to. So as a result of that, there's always been this voice in me every time I get excited about something saying, oh, don't get too excited. And it has really blocked me from feeling a sense of hope and excitement for the future. And there's always been the sense of doom and gloom and dread about certain things because it's like just waiting for the sky to fall. And it's those kind of old patterns and programmings that are falling away. Lorraine's also just mentioned, for me, it's letting go of sadness and an awareness of the letting go. Yeah, that's that observation that I spoke about in the beginning, of really being able to observe how it feels to let it go. And Faith has also joined us today. Welcome, Faith. Nice to have you here. Faith is also feeling the sadness of letting go as well, but it's becoming much clearer. And Elizabeth Rose says she's had loads of SOSs from clients who feel like they were dying, exactly the feeling of the old paradigm dying off in them. Yes. Yeah, there is, yeah. It's interesting because I'm observing within clients that I'm working with recently, there is a lot of kind of death coming up, and I say that, you know, in inverted commas, because I don't mean death as in a literal physical death. I mean it as a transformational process that is happening. And it is that death of the old, that old paradigm, that old reality. And, you know, whether we are aware of it or not, each one of us holds within us pieces of that old reality because we've lived in it. We've had to adapt and adopt the practices and the processes of that old reality so that we could survive in it. But it's no longer relevant. So we're able to let that go. And as that letting go happens, there will be a sense of sadness because everything that we've taken on, whether we see it as a positive or a negative, is immaterial. But everything that we have taken on, everything that we've experienced, has served some purpose in some way. And so they become a part of us, but it isn't actually an integral part of us. It's just a part that we've taken on, and now we can let that go. And interestingly enough, we spoke about yesterday as well in our Q&A a lot about death and what happens at the time of death and after death. So there is a lot of this thinking and feeling around dying. And I mean, of course, there are at this time a lot of people moving on. Judy's mentioned on Friday night, I was feeling like I wanted to jump out of my skin. I just lay there and let it all flow through me. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that too. And Natasha, I heard something lovely this morning to write down 3 little things of daily gratitude or as an exercise to lead to hope. Hope and fear don't live in the same place. Exactly. Elizabeth Rose has mentioned, for me personally, it was mental, seeing echoes of old choices where I let myself down in love relationships, where I put up with what I put up with then that I wouldn't now, but leaving me with really strong disappointment on its way out, getting to deeper levels now. Yes. Yeah, that is something that's it is incredibly hard to face, that disappointment, because I've noticed that as well. It's a disappointment in myself that I allowed that to happen. It's a hard one. And also it does feel like there's this veil that's been ripped away and things are so clear. And you can see the things that no longer serve you in a way that we haven't been able to see before. And there's also this questioning around why are we not able to see that until now. I'm finding it challenging, that particular one too. Lorraine's also mentioned many friends and family members experiencing that sense of their old life dying. I've been grateful to understand what they are letting go and just hold the space of hope for them. Elizabeth Rose mentioned here, makes you be kind to yourself. Yeah. Even in the disappointment, I find I'm not beating myself up too much about it. I'm just being compassionate with that old me that didn't see it and didn't get it. Veils of abuse leaving, not energetically supported in the aura anymore. Yes. Faith is mentioned. I find there's a lethargy that immobilizes me at times, but its purpose is to encourage me to sit and reflect. Yeah. I think that lethargy is something that we've all been experiencing for a good while. And I think it's part of that space of being where we are able to see and to reflect on where we've been and where we are now, so that we actually are able to consciously move forward without taking all of that old stuff with us. Because I think certainly in all the choices and the changes that I've embarked on in my life, don't think I've consciously ever sat and thought, I no longer want that within me. I don't want that feeling. I don't want to take that that memory with me. I don't want to take the energy of that experience with me. It's almost like we're clearing and releasing from us on a very conscious level what we no longer want, so that we can manifest in our new lives from a clean slate rather than from a karmic slate. And the other thing that came up, so when I look and feel into the energies, I'm looking at what's currently going on for us, but then I also look at what's happening on a subconscious level and what we are consciously becoming aware of. And when I was looking at the subconscious aspect, what was interesting is that I was showing that we're releasing the concepts and ideas of judgment and criticism, which have fueled many of our choices and the decisions that we have made in the past, which I thought was quite interesting because, and I sat with that and I thought, well, how many of my choices that I've made in my life in the past have been fueled by judgment and criticism? Whether that judgment is of myself or another, it doesn't really matter, or the judgment of a situation or an experience even, rather than just acknowledging the experience for the experience in itself, judging and criticizing those experiences and saying, well, now it's time to let go of those ideas of judgment and criticism, so that we can actually step forward again without that karmic slate dictating our experiences and determining the outcome of those experiences. We're moving into the space where I think we are growing in understanding around the fact that as a soul, we are here to experience healing, growth, expansion, and evolution. That we're not here to just live a life where we get up at the same time every day, we go to a job that we don't like, that we live day to day through this routine of, I want to say, boredom. You know, where's the excitement? Where is the zest for life? Where is the passion? Where is the sense of purpose? And one thing that this past year has given us is this pause in our lives to be able to reflect on, actually, do I want to do this life this way for the rest of my life? I certainly don't. And I'm living a life that I love. This life I've consciously chosen and I've consciously created. I love what I do. And I wake up every day not feeling burdened by the fact that I've got to go to an office and sit at a desk and do what someone else tells me to do. I'm incredibly lucky to have been able to create the life that I live, where I can get up and do something that excites me and brings me fulfillment and joy. But even I've looked at my life and said, well, there's certain things that need to shift. There's certain things that need to change, because if I don't change them, I'm going to get into a habit and into a rut here. And I'm going to lose that sense of fulfillment, and I'm going to lose the sense of joy. So things need to be shaken up and shifted around so that we can keep moving forward, so that we don't become stagnant in what we do, even if we're loving it. Elizabeth says that's what I think is under disappointment, judgment of myself. Yeah, me too. It's that feeling of, oh, you idiot. Yeah. Lorraine's mentioned learning that without judgment, we hold compassion for ourselves and others and really make decisions from a place of love and passion. When we remove the victim view of what happens, we can move into a place of love. Yes, I love that. And I think it is, that is the key, is that we're moving into this place of self-love first. Because if we can't have that, how do we have that empathy or that compassion for anyone else? And self-love is often a concept that can be incredibly difficult for people to grasp, especially if you have grown up in a family where that wasn't encouraged, where you were told that you weren't good enough, where there was expectations that you needed to meet that were someone else's and not necessarily who you were. So then the idea of self-love and the concept of self-love is, how do we get there? How do we move into that space? How do we step into it? It's a bit like that question of, people, when I first started this journey, and my life was very different to how it is now, and I was very different to how I am now. And I remember people always saying to me, you need to step into your power. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. And it's the same when someone told me I needed to love myself. Well, don't know how to do that. Don't even know what that means. And what I realized and came to understand is that if we can start to have compassion for ourselves first, then we move into a space of self-love. It's a natural process that the compassion leads to love. So if you're struggling to find self-love, just work on the compassion bit.
Okay, just further to what you were saying earlier about, the job and the compassion you're talking about now. You get your job and you love it and you're doing, and it's very exciting, and then it isn't. And you start beating up yourself because you're doing something wrong. It used to be great fun, great excitement. You wanted to get up and go and do it. And without that self-compassion and the understanding that it is past now, something needs to change. And you end up saying, no, well, it's all my fault because 6 months ago, this was exciting, this was fun. How come isn't it exciting? So I must be doing something wrong. I must do something different. Instead of just saying, well, it's past now. What's next? Move on to something else. And not giving yourself that you've done what you needed to do when it was exciting, when it was fun. When it stops being that, it's time to make changes and allowing yourself to make that. So, yeah.
I think it's also the world that we've lived in has told us that, you've got to find a job or you've got to find a career that you stay in and you stick with it until you retire. And what I love about the younger generations is they certainly don't believe in that one. They sit in a job for a couple of months, sometimes a couple of weeks. If they don't like it, they move on. And there's no judgment and no criticism in that. It's just it's not working for me. And I think we need to get back into that space as well. And I think as you get older, it becomes harder because you understand more or have experienced more the consequences of decisions. And sometimes making radical changes can be painful. But I think that the space that we're moving into and these old programs and patterns that we're letting go of mean that we can actually, instead of being afraid of the decisions that we have to make or the changes that we have to make, we can start to feel excited about them, because it means that we're lining up more and more with our soul purpose and consciously aligning more and more with that soul purpose rather than winging it. because most of the time we haven't got a clue what our purpose is, and we're just, trying to feel which is the right way, trying to think which is the right way, and doing that based on what the world has taught us or what the world has told us, whereas that is changing, thankfully. And we're evolving and we're growing, so things must change.
I think a lot of us take on responsibilities that aren't ours, and then we don't know how to release those responsibilities. So we stay in the rut that we're in, which the responsibilities tie us in there instead of looking at it and saying, is it really my responsibility? Should I be holding myself responsible for this? And if yes, then fair enough. But if no, but actually look at what you're holding. Is it yours or isn't it yours?
Yeah, exactly. And I think as we become more and more conscious of the space that we've stepped into now, we can become aware of the responsibilities that we're carrying that are not ours, and we can start to give that energy back and send those responsibilities back to where they belong. I mean, in essence, the only responsibility we have is to ourselves. And if we have children, to a certain point, we're responsible to them. And if we have animals, we're always responsible for them. But, ultimately, we're not responsible for our partners. We're not responsible for our parents. We're not responsible for our extended family or our friends. We're solely responsible for ourselves. Everyone else needs to make their choices and their decisions based on their own sense of responsibilities for themselves. And I think, that's part of, that ripping away of whatever veil seems to have been ripped away, is seeing, where are you putting your energy and why are you putting your energy there? Is it actually serving you? Or are you just throwing it into a never-ending pit? And I certainly have come to that realization around a few things in my life, is that without thinking, I step into things and agree to things that don't serve me. They serve the other person because I'm just giving and giving and giving, but they're not serving me because there's no balance in the energy exchange that's happening. And if we look at everything that we're being guided to do, and it comes up, I think, just about every single week when we meet, is the need for balance. And so there's the need for balance within ourselves, but there's also that need for balance within the energetic exchanges that are happening. If we're giving and there's nothing coming back, there's a problem. We need to stop and really contemplate and reflect on, if I'm giving all of this, where is it coming back? Am I depleting myself energetically on a level without realizing it? And Faith also said, also understand we can't fix everything and we shouldn't try. No, not our responsibility to fix anything. And again, that's also this concept of responsibility that is given to us from a very young age. And that is also something that we're needing to adjust in our thinking and in our behavior. I mean,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go on. Oh, you sure? Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is connected to what we're talking about but just on a smaller, sort of more microcosmic level. And it's to do with why I missed the Q&A, which I was so upset about. And it's a weird, it was quite a radical situation that happened. And I kind of want to ask about it in terms of two things. One being what you and I talked about this week, where you were saying, whenever I'm feeling or whenever we're feeling out of sorts, so depressed or frustrated or angry or lonely, any of those things, it's because we actually we've gone out of alignment with our soul in that moment. And that's a huge one, you know. So now it's kind of, and obviously I knew this before, but you sort of learn it at deeper levels as you go along. And then connected to something that in a Lee Harris podcast thing where the Z's spoke about, they said, your power lies in the reset. So basically they're talking about exactly what we were talking about, where when you've gone out of alignment, you're the one that can go, okay, I've gone out of alignment. Now let me do everything that I can to bring myself back in. You know, and it's funny because that was challenged at such a level on Saturday. It was weird. I basically came home at like 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. The night before, there'd been a radical frat party type thing right next door in the kind of apartment next door to me with people, you know, drunk and on substances and literally howling at the moon, you know, till 2 a.m., which, you know, and that that sound of people that much on substances triggers me very badly because of, as you know, my history. Well, like you, Nancy, you know about history with addiction in my family and that kind of thing. So it kind of puts me into a, like you say on Friday night, you felt it put me into such a weird space. And then the Saturday morning was sort of a rush, but I did manage to get myself because I thought about it. I was like, no, reset. And then I had a wonderful time with my brothers and my nephews in the morning, and I came back 2 p.m. and someone was having an absolute raging house music party right below me in the apartment below me. And I'm talking about house music at the level that it's played in a club, like literally in a club. I mean, and I'm not even exaggerating. And, you know, for the first 3 hours, I was literally like, no, I can handle this. I can reset. And I didn't want to go out. I was desperate for time at home. It was, you know, and they did it for 8 hours solid. And it pushed me, you know, and I realized this is why music is used as a torture method, because it literally is like Chinese torture. You can't get away from it. There's nothing you can do to. And funnily enough, I hadn't seen the notifications about the Q&A. I only saw later and I was like, but how could I not have seen them? And I'm telling you, I think it was my guides making me not see it because they knew I'd be even more upset because I literally could never have gone on to the Q. I couldn't even hear. If I went on my computer, I couldn't hear the computer. Like that's how. And in that situation, so what my question is, you know, because I literally had wanted to sage, I'd wanted to do a whole full moon ritual, and it was just not ritual, but you know what I mean. I'd wanted to do some work, some spiritual work. And I just could not bring myself to do any of it. I was so disturbed because it was the same thing and much closer, people in much closer proximity, all getting so out of it. You can hear it, you can feel it, it's right in your, you know, it's there. And there was no way I could sage, I couldn't do anything. So and I was texting the agent, obviously trying to sort that. Eventually I had to go down and tell them to put the music off like late that night or whatever. But, you know, how do you work with the reset in that kind of situation? Now, I know it's not, look, there's a lot of parties in this area. It's not something new, but this one sort of was the chart topper of parties that I've experienced. But how do you, in that kind of situation, navigate your way through without allowing it to take you way down, which it did. I mean, it affected my frequency, it affected everything. And really, you know, how do you do that? Because obviously I've reset today, I've done everything, but I can still feel it's dampened me. It's, you know what, it's a kind of abusive situation, really. But I don't know, what are your thoughts around that?
Why did you not call the police?
No, I've done that before. And this one, there were some people in the party that I knew personally from the building, and you know my history with this building. So calling the police, it would have been a whole nother level of calling the police. It would have affected, there were clearly drugs at this party. It could have had exceptionally negative effects for them. And there's no way I could create more of bad vibes in the, not bad vibes, but you know what I mean? Like trying to hit up against the old structures in the building and whatever. So, and I just, yeah.
You allowed all of this to happen to you because you wouldn't put a boundary in place. You know, to sit and put up with 8 hours of that kind of music, in my opinion, I wouldn't have put up with it for half an hour. I would have phoned the police. I mean, it's infringing on your space.
Yeah, but the agent kind of said to me, I literally sent her a video of the noise level and she was like, in terms of the rules, I can't do anything about this until after daylight. So it's almost like, I don't know. I do hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying.
We're in a pandemic. I mean, people are not supposed to be having parties. Perfect excuse to phone the police and get them involved. So, you know, in that situation, you perpetuated it by not taking a stand. You know, it's you shouldn't have had to put up with that. And there are things in place. We live in a society where there are things in place. Whereas if we feel like we don't have the authority in that space, we can call on someone who does. We're living in a time of a pandemic. People are not supposed to be having parties.
Yeah, I hear you. I think if, you know what, if I'd known it was going to happen, if she had warned me, I probably would have gone to stay at my brother for the night or something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Again, you know, you had every right in that instance to put a boundary down and say, this is unacceptable. I'm not taking it. There's, you know, you live there too.
Yeah, I hear you. But say in another situation in life where you can't necessarily get out of a situation and it's something that say it's for even a 2-hour period, you have to be in something. Do you constantly kind of reset as you go along? Do you see what I'm saying?
You've also got to look at the situation that you're in. If you're in a situation that feels abusive, get out. Whatever it is, don't stay there and try and align with your soul and make it okay. If you're sitting in a space where your energy is being sucked out and you're being pulled down energetically, get out of there. You have that choice to be in that situation or not. The fact that that was happening in the space where you live is even more challenging. Yes, I agree with you. But you have every right to say, this is not acceptable. And you need to be careful of what is it in you that allowed that to go on for 8 hours before you said something? What in you thought number one, that your space is and your peace isn't as important as their fun? And what in you is worried about, and why are you worried about what they're going to think of you anyway? So,
yeah,
you know, you don't have to answer those questions, but those are things that you do need to think about. Yeah, because that's not okay.
The problem is in this area, a lot of people do it. A lot of people have those parties. It happens all the time. So, and no one says anything. I swear, I think I'm the only person that ever complains. It's radical. And so I feel like I feel like I'm spoiling everyone's fun after COVID and everything. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like people having a party. I just feel, oh God, to be the one to tell them to stop, which I did at the end of the evening, you know. But it's just, but I hear you. I hear you. And it's also just, I've got to move out of this area, like we both know. I've got to move out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway. It's time to get out of there. it's challenging. It really is challenging, but I think again, it's that, again, it's our responsibility. We are responsible for our space. We're responsible for the environment that we are living in. And if that environment is not supportive, you either got to change it or you got to get out of it. And if you can't change it because it's not yours to change, then you got to get out. And I think that, a lot of us are, I think we have our own idea or time frames around what it is that we're planning, and sometimes those time frames are not in alignment with the universe's time frames.
Kate, Anita, I have a saying that I read in a book a long time ago, but act on the whispers before they become shouts. And I just was thinking, I mean, what a horrible situation, but what are the chances? I mean, I don't know where you live, but to have that in your face in 24 hours twice. Yeah. And that seems like the whispers have become shouts and I don't know your situation. I don't know where you live. It has happened here because I live in the city of Boston, but it has never happened twice in 24 hours. It happens a couple times a year that there's a triple decker behind me and they have a big party. So, I mean, I can't stand loud music. It would shatter my soul. I would have had to leave or go, whatever. And I understand not calling the police because I'm a single person who lives in the city alone. And to be honest, I'd be a little afraid there'd be repercussions for me, in the place that I live. But anyway, just, I'm sorry, what a awful thing, but act on the whispers before they become shouts, whatever that means.
No, definitely. Thank you, Nancy. And I mean, it's I've known for quite a while I have to move out of here, and I keep putting it off because of my work, because it's gonna disrupt my work, and my work is at a very intense point. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to do a whole thing when I know exactly what you're saying. It's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. And the thing of me not doing anything, it's funny, in retrospect, I completely get it. And at the time, it just, yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Anita, I'm glad you brought this up because it's an example. I mean, we can all look at it and say, hey, why don't you move, change your environment? But it's I think it's helping me see smaller things that I've been setting boundaries for, but maybe not strongly enough. That now, it applies to all things. We need to, like Kate was saying, we need to be clear about what our boundaries are and love ourselves enough to say, hey, this isn't working for me. So can we work it out and it's a balance and it's a two-way street, or is it just going to continue to stay out of balance and then I have to choose to do something different? So anyway, I'm glad you brought it up, and I've got some small things. I'll be seeing things that are probably sound smaller, but really aren't. It's the same kind of thing I think that we all need to be doing.
Yeah, thank you, Lorraine. And I think also, Nancy, in terms of it happening in that short space of time, it's never happened before. And I do actually think it's got to do with people being kind of in lockdown for so long. So now when they have a party, it's at another level. It's really at another level, especially with the alcohol and the substances. The level of kind of possession that I hear in the voices and the screaming, seriously, it didn't used to be like that. It really didn't. And I think people now are, they get to a situation like that and they just let those frustrations rip. They just kind of, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing, but it is what it is. That's why I need to move to an area where, as you say, not as many people have parties all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to be perfect, but yeah.
Well, the other thing that's cropping up that I'm hearing is just, it's an example of 3D versus, where we're all moving towards in 5D is, and so there are people really gravitating towards that, 3D existence. And I think the more we see it and the more we're changing, we just have to say, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want it. So.
I mean, one of the other things that I listened to some videos this week by a guy called Alberto Villoldi, for any of you that have heard of him or read his books. And in one of the videos, he was talking about how this is a time that has been prophesized, where the gates of hell are opened and the gates of heaven. So we are walking amongst the dark and the light on many levels and in many different realms. And so it is even more important that we have very clear, very firm, and very strong energetic boundaries. And if we are worried about the consequences of setting those boundaries, we are placing ourselves in a to use the word dangerous position on an energetic level. So we do need to be very firm and very clear and not allow the influence of that kind of darkness into our space. There are times where we need to step up and be the warrior, and it's the warrior for the light. So really find that strength to step into that warrior space when it's required and when it's needed. Because I can tell you, Anita, I wouldn't have put up with that for half an hour. And damn the consequences of whatever they're going to do to me afterwards. But, that boundary needs to be firm, needs to be strong. I mean, I live in an incredible, you've been here, Anita, so you know where I live, and it's an incredibly peaceful space and incredibly peaceful neighborhood. But I do have an Airbnb cottage next door, and they do have, random people coming to stay. And there've been a few times where there's some young people having a party next door, and I have stuck my head out of that window and used my best mom voice and said, cut it out. Because, we don't need to put up with that stuff. They can go inside. People need to respect each other. And that's another thing that humanity seems to have lost, is the idea that we need to respect each other. And if we're living in a communal space, we need to acknowledge that what we do impacts everyone else around us. And this is a clear example of that. But we only ever see it when it's the bad things. We need to also start seeing that, you going there and making them aware of the impact that they are having on the environment around them will maybe get them to wake up just a little bit so they don't do it again. But if you don't do anything, they're not going to care. So they're just perpetuating that behavior.
Yeah, I mean, this woman was Airbnb, and I think in terms of what you were saying about the warrior thing, we have to be the warrior. I think maybe if I hadn't had to be the warrior that time before, in terms of the other issue in building 2 weeks before, which had kind of drained my energy already, I might have had the energy. And I think that's, yeah, but that's like what Nancy's saying. The whispers are becoming shouts. I need to get out.
Yeah, I mean, it's Elizabeth Rose says she had to move homes or areas at a very bad time. I put out a cosmic order on just an area of 20 houses out of a whole town, and I got one. I believe only because it was such a necessary move at a very necessary time. I got the same thing. I also put out one of those orders and said I need to move to a place of peace because the world's chaotic enough as it is. I don't need to live in a space of chaos. And thankfully found this space. Fiorenz has just said we are spiritual warriors. Yeah, exactly. And I think, when we step into that space and harness that energy of being the warrior, when we're doing it for good, we are energized. So again, if you're feeling depleted every time you have to engage in that warrior space, you need to look at why. Because it shouldn't be a depletion. You shouldn't feel depleted when you put boundaries in place. And I know that, there is this idea that, we must all be, my favorite saying, and I have an incredible amount of sarcasm when I say it, love and light. We are not here in a space of love and light. That is an illusion. We're living in a space of incredible darkness, and we are bringing the light. And sometimes that light needs to be a force, and a powerful force. So we need to learn to harness that power and that energy of the light and bring that forth within us, and engage with these kind of situations and circumstances in a way that is strengthening, not depleting. Okay, so it might be a good idea to look at where is your resistance to stepping into being that warrior. Because we have all of these aspects within us. We have that warrior, we have the peacemaker, there are aspects in us, and at times we need to look at the circumstances and say, okay, well, which part of me do I need to harness in this situation? Which part of me do I need to bring up and use in this situation? And sometimes it's a battle. And that experience that you've had, especially if people were drinking and using drugs, it's a battlefield. It is a battlefield of darkness. And if that is the space that you are living in, and that is what is happening in there, boy, I'd be in full-on warrior mode. So it's a lesson of, like, don't ever let that happen to you again. Really. Lynn said, warriors with swords of light and love. Well, I think our concept of love is not quite the same as the universal concept of love. I remember connecting to that force of love and coming away from it pretty intimidated and pretty scared, because it wasn't the love that I thought it was going to be. It's a force to be reckoned with.
And maybe, Anita, if you decide to let go of all the reasons that you shouldn't move right now, exactly what happened to Elizabeth will happen with you. Because when I finally decided it was time to buy a home, I literally just put the energy out. I looked at one house other than the one I bought. And people are like, you're not even going to keep looking? No. I put the energy out. I actually told my father, who was on the other side, can you go? You got nothing better to do. Go find me a house. But maybe if you let go and say, have a general idea of what you'd like, where you'd like to be, maybe it'll happen just like they're saying, because it's happened for me, with jobs, with homes. When it's time to move on, you just go, okay, universe, take me there. And you'll find something, even though it seems like a bad time, you'll look back and go, oh my gosh, this was the perfect time and the perfect place. And I never would have found it if those idiots downstairs hadn't been so darn loud.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
I'm liking this idea of putting the family to work on the other side. Yeah, I've been doing that too. It does actually work. Give them a job.
And no judgment, Dad, but really, what do you got to do? I was running a hotel in downtown Boston at the time and was working 80 hours a week. And I'm like, who's busier right now? And you know what? Just a quick story. My parents were both born on the 13th, so there's a whole thing in my family, and my niece and my, and so I said, I'll know when the right place, and there were other reasons I won't get into, but my mother said, what's the address? And I said, oh, 13 Seven Hill Court, so it works.
It does. Oh, I love that, Nancy. Thank you. Okay, anyone else have anything to share? I mean,
I will just add on that, Kate, that when I did my cosmic order, when I say it was one of 20 houses in one street in a massive town, it wasn't my only stipulation. I mean, I'm really, I had 7, 8 stipulations, and without fail, they came in. And I think I only did the ritual once. I only did the prayer ritual once. And I only looked at the house that I'm in now that I bought. And I think I didn't have time or energy to sit and, it was a very difficult time, as you know. So I literally went in, did it. They knew why. And I just offered it up. I couldn't conceive of moving at that time, but I had to. And so I knew I couldn't put it off. And I think, Anita, if I know it's an upheaval and all the rest of it, but if you just, maybe try it, just get clear, go in once with your power, with your force, use some of that frustration from yesterday or whatever, and just say, right, if you want me to do it, this is what I want, bam. And then sit back and it'll come. I have every faith it for you, it will come. Easily, actually, easily. That's the beauty of it when it does it.
And I think that ties into what I said earlier, is that we have these ideas that life has to be difficult or challenging or painful, but it doesn't. Like there is the capacity for life to be filled with ease, and for our lessons and our growth to be joyful and to be gentle. They don't always have to be harsh. We don't always have to be feeling like we've got to push the river. We can just hop in and go with the flow. And I also think that a lot of us are conditioned to be subservient to the universe and to forget that we are an active participant in creation. And I've often noticed that there are times where my levels of frustration rise to a point where I end up stomping around my house, giving the universe, my guides, and God a good talking to. And it's incredible how things suddenly start shifting. There are times where I look at my guides and I say, well, you're just leaning against a wall watching me like this is a reality TV show, but this is actually my life and I need you to do this, this, and this. They generally end up laughing at me, but it's, things start to shift. So we can make those requests and sometimes demands, and again, it's about those boundaries. Because if we accept on a human physical level abuse, or just even, Anita, accept what you had to go through this weekend, then the universe just says, oh, well, she can handle it. Give it to her again and again and again and again and again. She can handle it. until you actually draw that line and say, no, this is not for me. So we do have to sometimes draw the line and say, enough's enough.
Kate, just putting your comment about the guides and Nancy saying to her dad, you know, if you don't use your guides, they're more than happy just to cruise along and sit against the wall. You actually need to make them get active and participate in your life and say to them, okay, you've had an easy cruise for the last 6 months. Now I need this and that. Otherwise, they're going to keep cruising. They actually enjoy being asked to help. So, yeah.
I do the same thing. Sometimes when all hell's breaking, I'm like, can you help me here, guys? I mean, seriously? You have a purpose? Let's get to it.
Exactly. I'm exactly the same. Thankfully, we now have Bluetooth and you know, these fancy cars that we can talk without having the phone to our ears. Thank God, because I would look like a mad person. So I spend my life, that's the one place where I can have a conversation with God and with the universe and with my guides. And I kind of feel like they can't go anywhere. They're stuck in the car with me. Like when my children were little and I needed to give them a lecture. They couldn't go anywhere. So it's a good space. But we do need to ask.
Thank you, all of you, for all your words, all your advice. You're amazing.
We'll send the invoice for your therapy session next week.
Say
Oh,
thank
we'll
you.
bring an issue that you have to solve next week, Anita.
I was say thank you, Anita, for bringing it up, because what a great conversation we've all had. And I think everyone's had a nugget from it that they can apply to themselves, or you know, probably most of us. So thank you.
I also think, you know, one of these one of the patterns that I think we're all working through and letting go of is this idea of always being nice and always being good.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always be nice. Okay.
Can I just share something? Because last week you were all really helpful with me about stuff happening at home and with my dad. And I think you know, we were talking about the inner work, and I think I've got real clarity about what my work is that I need to do. But also where the inner work is for me, but then the bridge between where the boundaries are. So sort of picking up about what you were saying about the boundaries then, you know, and because I think I was really having a challenge between the two about that balance between that inner work and then when something isn't okay, and that being the warrior. And I think I'm getting a little bit more clear about that, which feels really good. So thank you. And I think the other thing is that I'm noticing that my trust in the universe is just really starting to open. And I feel like every day something, you know, like when, I can't remember if I said it last weekend, but it feels like I'm in a dance. Like, you know, if you're doing like a dance where you're linking arms and you're just like going like this, and forgive me if I mentioned it last week, but it just feels a bit like that every day something magical is happening. And then I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And it was like, I sent a message to a group of girls that I've only recently met on Friday night about having like a little impromptu dance together last night, like on Zoom, which was linked in with a course that I did with Lee Harris a few weeks ago. And I thought, no, just put it out there, because sometimes I hold back on communication because of, you know, fear, thinking, do people really want to know this? Do people really want to be involved? And And then I thought, Sarah, it's fine, just put it out there, just trust. Whatever comes up will be the right thing to come up. Whoever decides to come, it'll be the right people. And if nobody decides to come, that's also right. And just trust. And then it was so nice because there were actually ended up being 3 of us. Like, some people didn't like reply until like sort of 2 hours before, and it was fine because I just sort of let go. And I don't know, it just feels a little bit different. I'm absolutely exhausted. So sorry, because I was sort of lying on the chair before and looking really tired, but but it is really, it feels really good. And then I've got some clarity this week about my energy levels as well, because I've got the chronic fatigue thing, but I found that my iron levels are actually really extremely low. So it was really actually amazing to have some black and white information. As for anyone, including Kate, that's had it knows, like, black and white is quite good, because then I know, you know, there's a place to work. And at one point this little thought crept in and I thought, oh gosh, you know, why has this been missed over all these last few years? Because I could, the doctor's notes was then told that it happened a few years ago. And then I thought, but it's happened for a reason. It's happened for a reason that hasn't got spotted until now. And that, you know, taking time to take a step back from things. And anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to share those things.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think it's important also that understanding that if you were meant to pick up the low levels of iron, you would have. But if you had picked that up in the beginning, would you have been on the journey that you've been on now? Probably not.
Exactly. And I think there's a reason why I'm on this, a massive reason why I'm on this journey. And I know that even if whatever I start taking, and I've got some appointments next week, it will still take a while actually for that to get into my system. But it's just, I'm so blessed to be on this journey, even though there have been massive challenges, but I know I'm in the right place. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay. Anyone else got anything they'd like to share, or should we get on to doing some meditating? And there was one more thing, just on the notes that I made to focus on for this week, and that is, the key is this alignment that we're needing to be focused on, the alignment with our soul, and that we need to surrender into the space that we're in right now, to observe our lives, to look and to reflect on what it is that we're needing to shift and change. But the more we align with our soul, the more we are able to step forward into a space of expansion and excitement and joy and positive expectation, rather than a negative expectation that things are going to be difficult or be hard. And I think, Anita, your example of needing to move and thinking it's going to be this enormous task, when actually it possibly doesn't have to be. And that it's that kind of thinking that we're needing to let go of and to surrender. So it'll be interesting this week if you can become aware of those examples as they come up in the moment, and see them and recognize that you can shift it and change it in that moment. So if there is that old thinking that comes up of well, you know, this is going to be challenging, or this is going to be difficult, or, you know, in that moment you can say, no, it doesn't have to be. That is the old that is speaking to me. And I know that it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Okay.
Thanks for that, Kate. I'm facing a bit of a challenge that I've been very frightened of coming up next weekend. All the years of training with you, I'm going to implement it next weekend. And I'm in a mild state of terror and I'm feeling I'm not adequate. And that comment there just says, let all that get out of the way and go and do it in the village. So thanks for that one.
Well, I think, Megan, until you do it, you're not going to know that you can. You know, we spend way too much time not doing things because we're afraid of stepping into it. And
We're
then
thinking of reasons why we shouldn't.
yeah, well, we waste a lot of time doing that. Okay.
I'm sure it'll go well, Megan, whatever it is. I really am. Yeah. And thank you, Kate, for that comment as well, what you were talking about. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that. Sarah's just said it's a great mantra. Things don't have to be a challenge. No, they don't. We can choose now to live our lives through joy, not through pain or suffering. And make that a conscious choice every single day, every moment. With every decision you have to make, decide you are going to do this through joy. And then we also reframe everything. We reframe how we view the world. Our perspective shifts and completely changes. So we start to see the good in the world rather than always seeing the bad. And I can be one of those that can only focus on the negative. Trust me, it takes practice. Okay.
And isn't fun so much better than pain?
So much more fun. Yeah. And it's time for fun. Haven't we? We've had enough of all the other stuff. It's time for some fun. Okay, time for some meditating too, which is also always fun. So when you're ready, settle into a comfortable spot. And just allow yourselves to close your eyes. And just draw your awareness to your breath and into your breathing. And allow yourself to settle into this time, into this moment, and into the space that we're creating together. And using your breath, just allow yourself to let go. Let go of worries, concerns, anxieties, fears. And just feeling yourself relaxing. Feeling your mind becoming still. And just allow yourself now to focus on breathing in peace. With every inhale, just breathe in peace. And with every exhale, breathe out peace. So that you're able to create a space of peace within you and a space of peace all around you. Keeping your awareness and your intention on peace. And in this space, just becoming aware of the alignment of your body and your being. Just observe the alignment of your shoulders. They need to be adjusted. Are you holding tension and pressure in that area? And allow yourself to breathe in peace into that space. If you're feeling the weight of burdens and responsibilities, just allow them to drop away. And then allow your awareness to drop into your heart center. And allow your heart center to expand. Allow that sense of peace to settle into that space. And as the peace settles into your heart, just feel the light within you begin to grow and expand until it is able to fill your entire body and being. And allow this light to expand beyond the space that you're sitting in now. And feel it connecting with the light of all those that are joining us today. And as we connect to one another, feel your light strengthening. Feel your energy strengthening. Feel your spine becoming straighter. Feel your heart opening wider. And now allow this light to radiate outwards, out into the street that you live on, out into the neighborhood, into the town, into the city. Feel it expanding beyond the borders. And see this light moving into the earth. Feel it being anchored and grounded within the earth. And if there's anyone in your life who you feel is suffering or in pain, who is struggling at this time, just bring that person into the light. Feel all the negativity and all the heaviness, all the pain and the heartache being transformed and transmuted and replaced with light, love, peace. And now allowing the light to settle in and around you. Slowly draw your awareness back into this time and into the space that you're in, where we started. Breathing yourself back into this body. Taking a few deep breaths. Feeling your fingers and your toes. Opening your eyes when you're ready. Oh, that was quite something. I don't know how you all experienced that, but I definitely felt the incredible force of kind of light and power that was created when we all connected on that level. It was amazing. Thank you.
My geography is not that good, Kate, but I could almost feel the ripple from continent to continent where we are meeting Africa, America, Europe, UK. I could see the light coming together across the world. Thanks, it was amazing.
It was amazing.
Thank you, Kate. I have to say, before we started, Lorraine, were you trying to say something to us, but you had it on mute by mistake? Am I right?
You know, I hit some button and it did something that I had to, I think I pinned I tried to unmute and it hit something else. So anyway, no, I was just saying that I love the word reframe because we can do that every day, every moment of every day, really. Anytime something happens, we can step back and just reframe what we're seeing and how we're feeling. And I love that. But I love the meditation, and there's power in numbers, and we're not in this alone. It's so nice. I love and have loved since last March, coming every week and feeling and being with people that kind of understand the journey. So it's awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And I think it's coming together with others that understand the journey that we're on.
Yeah, it's a lifesaver.
It has been.
My sister told me the other day that we were talking about something about this group, and she said that she had noticed such a difference in my outlook and my positivity since I joined this group. So
that's great. Oh, I love that. I mean, it is an incredible space that we've created here, and it really is very, very special to me. And I'm just grateful you make the time every Sunday. And I think it's definitely something that's growing stronger and stronger, which is wonderful. And I see we've got Kathy that's managed to join us, but Kathy, we're at the end. I'm sorry.
And Keith.
And Keith. We got Keith and Kathy that have joined us. Welcome and thank you. And Kathy, Kathy is in Canada. She sent us an email a while ago introducing herself, and she normally isn't able to make the sessions, but yeah, sadly she's made the last bit of this one. But it's good to see you and good to have you here, and welcome Keith as well, also joining us. You guys will have to listen to the recording, which I'll send out as soon as it's downloaded.
Well, better late than never.
Exactly.
Nice to see the faces.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's good to have new people joining us. Well, Kathy's not really new. She just isn't normally with us in person live. But thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to connect with you all again, and I look forward to meeting with you all next week and seeing how the week has unfolded. And again, remember that the focus this week is on that alignment with our soul. And in saying that, remember that whatever is out of alignment is generally what's going to be highlighted. Mm-hmm. Which can be quite frustrating. But if we can just take a moment to breathe and to observe and to see how we can bring ourselves back into alignment, that frustration will be alleviated. And I'm speaking to myself as well as all of you.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. All right. So thank you again, and have a good week.
Yeah.
See you all next week. Lots of love. Cheers.
Just before we go, can I just tell Nancy that there's one lovely book called what is it? Proof of Heaven by a Dr. Eben Alexander that I think you will really enjoy in relation to what you were talking about last night on wondering. It's just a very interesting read. I'll put it in the chat box just before we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
It is, yeah. I've not read that book, but I actually have heard of it, and it is apparently quite a good one. For anyone that wasn't with us last night, we were talking about death, dying, and the process and what happened. Where we believe or know those two, where they go. It was an interesting discussion. Proof of Heaven is the book. Eben Alexander. He's the doctor who had his own near-death experience. Yeah.
The neurosurgeon, and he got E. coli meningitis and was out of it for a week. He was in heaven for a week, and he amazingly returned and then remembered everything. And he now spends his life telling the rest of the world about it and how it has changed him and how he has gone from there. It's really interesting.
Oh, yeah. A week in heaven. Lucky man.
Very interesting. So I think, Nancy, you will enjoy it.
A brave man, he came back after a week.
Yeah. Brave. Well, he obviously had a purpose to tell everyone. I was going to say brave or stupid, but
he's on a mission.
Yeah, that's good. Elizabeth Rose says she read it to her dad before to help him prepare for his passing. That was good thinking. Yeah. I remember reading The Shack. One read that. Yeah, it's not quite the same. It's not about near-death experiences, but it's about a guy who spends a couple of days, I think, in a shack with God, and trying to understand the loss of his daughter. It's an incredibly beautiful book. There's also actually a movie. Yeah, I think the movie's on Netflix or one of those things. Yeah, good. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And I really hope it's a good week, and I hope that you were able to put some of those that you love and care for into the light today to help to lift some of the pain. There's a lot of pain that people are in at the moment, and I think that's what we were able to do in today's meditation is incredibly important. So
And before we go, one more thing. My cousin, who I told you all about back at Thanksgiving, that had the massive stroke, is back in the hospital with 2 more brain bleeds, and the prognosis isn't good. So if you would just send her love and prayers and light for whatever journey she has ahead, I would appreciate it.
Thanks, Nancy. And no, you haven't heard any more about how she is since. Okay. We'll keep her.
I don't want to keep asking them because they're all just struggling with the pass of their mother just a few weeks ago. So I'm just waiting to hear. I figure I'll check in at the end of the day if I don't hear anything.
Okay. Keep me posted, please. All right. Good. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.